Welcome to The Fire Within. Once again, I'm your host, Joel Young. This week, we have an interesting guest that I'm looking forward to having him share his background as an entrepreneur in the Okanagan and his experiences in having his venture become a reality for him and those around him. I'd like to first introduce Brett Wayde of Ekahi in downtown Kelowna, just half a block from where we're sitting in the Shaw Studios. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Joel.
It's an interesting era. Since we've been doing the show where we're trying to delve into the hearts and minds of Okanagan entrepreneurs, it's become an awakening for myself to learn that, because people talk all the time about the Okanagan being a mecca of entrepreneurial discovery, if you will, for want of a better term. And to some degree, yes, I think it is. However, it depends on what the venture is all about. Can you tell the viewers a little story about your venture?
Sure.
Who you are and how did you get your venture started, and what inspired you to have your own business?
Yeah, great question. So, I think, as I think back, I've always had some entrepreneurial drive. Even when I was a young kid, from lemonade stands like all kids, to building little things out of wood to try to sell them on the side. I've always enjoyed that creative process, but also the other side of it too, trying to get some money from what I was doing, right? So I've really enjoyed that process. I suppose, though, it really officially started for me fully after I graduated from physiotherapy school. So as a physiotherapist, I was really drawn to private practice. And I started private practice, in fact, in Kelowna in 1995. And then I went to the United States for a few years. And if you really want to get a baptism in how to become a business person, get into healthcare and move to the United States, because they will show you how it's done. So I really learned a lot about what it was like to take this passion I had for healthcare and understand how I could create some kind of career from that. So I think that's really where it began. And when I moved back to Kelowna in 1999, I set up my first official business, and that was Sun City Physiotherapy.
Oh, so, you set that up?
Yeah, a couple of partners and myself, we set that physiotherapy clinic up. I think we officially opened in 2000. And it was a booming success right from the start, and to this day. Operating. To this day, I think they have 3 or 4 different clinics. They're doing great. And that really, I think, whet my appetite for wanting to just do more in terms of business. And I think for an entrepreneur, that's really what it is. You have, in many ways, you're born with it. You're born with this feeling that you are creative, passionate, will work tirelessly, long hours, and sometimes for a little reward other than the reward of doing what you love. And that's, I think, where it started.
Excuse me for interrupting you. You just hit on what is critically important for an entrepreneur: doing something that you love.
Absolutely.
The passion of it.
It's true. If you have no passion for it, it will never work. That's absolutely true. Because the work, even if it is something you absolutely love, it's going to be challenging. And I think of it in many ways like a high wire act without the net. You have to really love the high wire and know there's no safety net there. So I've really enjoyed it. So that started, again, my really official foray into business was the physiotherapy clinics. And again, they were quite successful. And shortly thereafter, because I had some children, I decided that I wanted to stay closer to home. I started a home-based physiotherapy practice.
Oh, okay.
And to this day, that one is also still going. So a couple of, different businesses, but again, both doing really well. And then a few years ago, my wife and I were sitting around dangerously daydreaming, which sometimes is a danger for us. And we decided that...
I could relate to that.
You understand what I'm saying, right?
Do I ever?
And we decided that we wanted to get back into business in a more official way, take it out of the house, if you will. And we decided that we wanted to explore not just physiotherapy, but another passion that was emerging, particularly for my wife, and that was yoga. So was there a way to marry these two things, physiotherapy and yoga? And it turns out they marry quite well. So we started to dream a little bit about what that business would look like. I had written a book at the time called Ekahi Method. And Ekahi is a Hawaiian word. It's a word which means one. And this word is really important for me, and it's important for our business philosophy in that we treat and see everyone as a connected being, a connected entity. So that's really what Ekahi Method was all about, understanding what your energy is, what my energy is, and how do they mix in this middle area like this. And from that, as I said, that book was born, and we continued to develop ideas around that book. We did a public speaking part, we had products related to it, and now we were starting to get some ideas about how we would marry that book, physiotherapy, and then yoga.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think your book is the vehicle that inspired our meeting one another.
That's true.
If I remember correctly.
That's very true.
That's
I
how I
remember
met
that as
you,
well.
via your book.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And in the book, we talk a lot about resonance. What does it mean when two people have resonance between each other?
Yeah.
And that's really what I wanted to discover, because a lot of people talk about, oh, we have a great energy, a great connection. There's this, we're on the same wavelength. And through my research, I wanted to understand, is there something that we can objectify about your energy and my energy and the energy of other people? So I developed this profile, this way of testing or measuring what your energy could be. Is your energy a long wavelength, or is it a much higher frequency type of energy? And maybe this helps to explain why we get in close proximity to somebody and it just doesn't quite feel right. Or conversely, it feels wonderful.
Yeah. And that happens more often than not, where when you're around people, you just don't feel right. Something is in there and you can't put your finger on it. I don't feel good about.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it really, tying back now to entrepreneurship and business, I think about it a lot. I think about it with every meeting I have with a client or a customer. I think a little bit about how is our energy working? And I've learned, and I teach people, ways in which we can adjust the tuner on our own personal stereo to try to create some resonance with somebody. Because really in business, that's a critical element. A critical element is understanding that everyone is coming in to a relationship, a business relationship, with different frequencies and different energies. And if you really want to connect with somebody, you've got to learn how to fine-tune that dial.
Fine-tune that dial.
Yeah.
Talk to me and our viewers about your business as it is today. What is the business?
Great. So we finally got to set the business up. It's just over 2 years old now. And the business is the Ekahi Center for Yoga and Mindfulness. So as I mentioned, we do have physiotherapy in there. But our business on 1304 Water Street, as you mentioned, just around the corner, is a studio where people do yoga, traditional forms of yoga. So in other words, what is quite trendy now is things like hot yoga and boot camp styles of yoga. We are traditional yoga. And what I mean by that is it's a hatha style of yoga. It's slower movements, attention to form, and really paying attention to making sure that we're not causing injury. So that's our style of yoga, and we do that 7 days a week. And then in our smaller room, so I mentioned we have 2 rooms, in the smaller room, meditation classes, as well as physiotherapy happens in there as well.
You have tables in there, or a table in physiotherapy?
Yeah, so the room that I currently am doing physiotherapy in is our sort of convertible room. So I bring in a portable table and do my treatment in there. And then when it's time, say for example, for a meditation class, table goes out and we're
Do you bring in somebody special for meditation?
Good question. So I teach one of the meditation classes, which I'm really passionate about, called Ho'oponopono, which is, you thought Ekahi was difficult. So Ho'oponopono is the practice of forgiveness and reconciliation. So
Hawaiian.
In Hawaiian, correct, yeah. In fact, in ancient Hawaiian times, Polynesian times, a really important practice was Ho'oponopono, which was helping people understand that if you want to heal, you need to forgive. And to this day, Ho'oponopono is in fact a part of restorative justice. So if somebody commits a crime, they have the option, depending on the crime of course, to go through ho'oponopono and practice and understand what it means to forgive and to reconcile the past. So that's the meditation I lead, and we also have another meditation on Wednesday nights, which a friend of mine leads, and he's very experienced at leading this meditation on Wednesday evenings.
Okay.
So.
Same style of meditation?
His is very different. It's a more eclectic style, guided meditation,
Yeah.
much more, I suppose, grounding in Buddhism.
Okay, I
Yeah.
like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're just about ready to have a little break. You talk too much.
That's I've been told that before.
No. I mean that in a positive sense. It's very informational. I like to listen to you talk about your beliefs and your principles. You're a self-principled human being, and that's what makes it interesting for myself and our viewing audience. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back to pick it up in a moment. Well, we're back and talking with Brett Wayde, the yoga physiotherapist, meditation guru in downtown Kelowna. And we're going through our learning curve to learn and understand what makes him tick that prompted him to create his entrepreneurial venture in downtown Kelowna. Brett, how do you promote your venture, and what type of people do you have surrounding you in your location in downtown Kelowna?
That's a good question. Promotion is a funny thing because I've been in business a fairly long time now. We started off talking about my background in physiotherapy clinics. And I've also had a background in writing a book and promoting that from an entrepreneurial perspective and products. So starting that back in the 90s, taking us forward now to 2016, promotion has been a learning curve. It's a rapidly changing process. So when I first started promoting, say for example, the physiotherapy clinics, it seemed pretty straightforward. You knock on the door of the doctor's office. Hello, my name is Brett. Here's a referral pad. It would be great if you would send me your patients.
Yeah.
And here we are now, 2016, and the promotion of physiotherapy and yoga is very different. Meaning that now, of course, social media is a big part of promotion. Yeah. So a lot of the promotion that we do is reaching out to our guests via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So learning how to use social media has been a really quite steep learning curve, quite honestly. Understanding that the attention span of most of your people who use social media is limited. So you can't all of a sudden write a great big story about what you did this day. It has to be short and brief. So the promotion of our studio is one part social media, but in truthfulness, the most effective way still of promoting the business is walking out on the street, talking to people.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of the day, people really are committing to you. They're not committing necessarily to the studio, they're committing to myself and my wife who own the studio. So getting people to understand who we are and know us and trust us is such an important part. And we find that when we get out and we meet people out on the street, hand them a business card, we get an excellent return compared to anything else we've spent money on advertising before. So.
You just said something that twigged a question. Is that other person in your clinic your wife?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
When I was in there the other day, the very
Correct.
first time I popped in, that was your wife.
That was my wife, yeah,
Oh,
that's
for
correct.
heaven's sakes. And she didn't know who I was. She did by the time I walked out the door.
Right, yes, that's true. Yes.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
So yeah, it is myself and my wife at the studio.
Yeah.
And then, so my wife teaches a couple of yoga classes. As I mentioned, I do one of the meditation classes. And then we hire or contract yoga instructors to deliver most of our classes. And hiring yoga instructors, like hiring an employee, it's really important that you go through a vetting process and really understand the person you're bringing in. Because with any business, you are really going to sink or swim by how well your staff, your employee, your contractors,
How they represent.
how they represent you,
Yeah.
both inside the studio and outside.
Yeah.
So that is something that we have really, again, a steep learning curve, learning how they need to understand what our vision is, need to understand where our passion comes from, and understanding who we are. So that's a really important part of it. You know, we've put a great deal of emphasis on hiring people who reflect us well, we think.
I'd like to ask you, Brett, on behalf of our viewers and of course myself, if you could talk a moment and answer about a question in terms of how you get your message across to the viewers or patients that come into the clinic, even if they just come in inquisitively.
Yes.
Okay, how you get your message across that I'm here, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I'm here for you, and I can
Right.
help you. The reason I'm jumping into that is because, and you and I touched on this in a previous conversation, the Okanagan, Central Okanagan, for sure, Central Okanagan has lots of yoga studios.
That's true.
It seems.
That's true.
It's like a rebirth of this self-healing. We talk about it a lot. We're an aging population. I'm part of that. I'm a senior, believe it or not. I know I look 39.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. And my wife just told me this morning, Joel, you're getting old. I said, what did you say? You're getting old. I said, I thought I just still looked young. She said, no, I'm sorry, I love you, but you're getting old. There wasn't love talk.
It is inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable. So can you answer that for our viewers?
Yeah, for sure. We take great pride in when people come into our studio, let's just say on a whim, they come in
Yep.
the front door, really trying to get to know, in a short period of time, get to know the person. That's a really big thing. Being sincere, open, and honest, and showing them that we really care about them. That's, I think, the most important thing that we do. And that sometimes is missed in some other businesses I've been in. I get the sense that they don't really care that I'm there. So in part of our research in setting up our company, we wanted to see what was missing in some of these other places. As you mentioned, there are lots of them. And what we felt was missing was a genuine caring about you as a person. So part of what Siri and I think we do well is when people come in, we really want to know, why was it that you came through the door? And we want to understand, what are some of your fears? Because believe it or not, a lot of people come to yoga studios with big wide eyes and they're scared. They're scared of many things. They're scared because they think it might be a religion. They're scared because they think they might be forced to bend themselves into positions that they might not get out of, that it might cause harm, or that people might judge them for what they wear or how they look. So a lot of it is showing them that we care, but also that it's a very nurturing environment. So a big step we take is, once we get them into the front door, is to literally walk them side by side and show them there's nothing to be afraid of. And show them the space, let them get comfortable in the space. And then if still there seem to be concerns or reservations, and we think we've heard them well, sometimes the final step is, why don't you take a free class, try it out?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the step somebody needs.
Step
There's no
step over the line.
Step over the line, remove all the
Sure.
barriers, right?
Yeah.
And once you remove all the barriers, there are very few other objections that people can come up with. And generally speaking, when they come through, most people have had wonderful experiences. Yeah.
Good. I like the way you're explaining that, because the viewers can grasp the comfortability that you offer to people when they first approach your clinic.
Exactly.
Come on in.
Yeah, and I think it's the same whether it's a coffee shop, or whether as an entrepreneur you set up a bike shop, or whatever you set up. If you come into that store or that shop and you feel that this person really cares about you, you're much more likely to commit
The connection is there.
The connection is there.
Or the connection is about to become a reality.
Exactly.
Sure.
And it's such a critical part of business. It is a relationship.
Yeah.
And I never forget that for a moment. And my background in healthcare lends itself well in many ways to traditional forms of business because I really want to understand you. I want to understand, again, what is your hesitation? What are your concerns? What are your fears? What are your motivations?
My wife is at a yoga session in West Kelowna as we sit here. She, the development that I live in has a clubhouse, big clubhouse.
Right.
And we have had a local woman who's a retired nurse do yoga sessions the last couple of years. Initially once a week and now twice a week. But she also does yoga classes a couple of times a week in another seniors community in West Kelowna. But in downtown West Kelowna, so to speak, there's a yoga studio. And somehow, whether my wife saw it on the computer or somebody mentioned to her, why don't you check that out? But she's been going now for a couple of months and she's been enjoying it because a husband and wife that run a yoga studio there have these classes. So she goes for 1 hour, specifically for 1 hour and 15 minutes, and with a bunch of older people, not all older people, but it's co-ed, but it's mostly women, a few males, a few men sprinkled in there, mostly women, and she enjoys it. My wife has been going to that studio in West Kelowna because of the feeling of comfortability she experiences by the sessions, instruction given by the husband and wife that run the studio. And that has worked out quite well for her personally now. All the kinks have been taken out of her body, so she feels really good about going there. However, she's been talking about going to a physiotherapist, hint, hint,
Right.
lately because she's discovered parts of her body that she didn't know existed before.
Right.
Just as I am as well. Nothing new about that, eh? So, I may knock on your door to say, fix my wife.
Fair enough. You know where we are.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good example, though, where, again, as you mentioned, there are lots of studios out there, lots of other businesses. I mean, you look at, again, I'm going to go back to coffee shops. There are lots of those in Kelowna. Why are some coffee shops more busy than others? Why are some yoga studios more busy than others? It really, I think, comes down to that thing where people come into the environment and they feel this is a safe, welcoming, comforting environment for them. And obviously that's what your wife is experiencing, right?
Yeah,
She feels very safe and feels cared for. You know, and I think really more and more, and I maybe I'll speak for myself, but I think it's true of everyone. I think more and more people are feeling disconnected. You know, we've never been more connected at any time in history. But more people, it seems, experience loneliness, sadness, depression, disconnect from other people. So I think what's so important about a physical space business is that when people come into that business, they feel, I belong here. In fact, one of our things that we always tell people is, I want people to feel that our business is like a second home. I mean, we put tea on for people. We have relaxing music. We have a serene environment. There's water, water fountain flowing. All these things are important pieces. So people come and they say, "Yeah, I feel like I'm
comfortable.
Comfortable. Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I feel unthreatened in this environment.
Exactly.
Sure. Another book in the offing.
There is another book actually that I'm writing. I'm about
There you go.
3/4 of the way through it. It's a departure in some ways from what I've been writing about in the past. So as you know, the last book, Ekahi Method, was about resonance and relationships between people.
Exactly.
What I'll say about this next book that's coming out is it's about resonance and relationship with higher powers.
Oh, the spiritual side.
Indeed.
The spiritual side of Brett Wayde.
Right.
My God in heaven.
It's emerging. Look out.
Yeah, look out. We're getting close to wrap-up time. Time is going fast having this chat with you this morning.
I always love chatting with you, Joel.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, I thought I was a chatty guy, but
Oh, no.
I've met another chatty guy.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to out-chat me.
There's no end.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing of yourself and of your venture. 2 years of having your venture is not a long time, really.
No, that's
for
true.
an entrepreneurial venture. Thank you once again for coming, Brett.
Thank you so much, Joel.
You're
It's
very
been a lot of
welcome.
fun.
Well, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, our viewers. Once again, another episode of The Fire Within, where we've visited with an Okanagan entrepreneur and discovered his fire within. Thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon.